Before you judge me, I need you to understand how complicated this story is, how it began, and how it came to this. I still can't fully understand it, but one thing is for sure, the quiet and peaceful days I thought I would spend for the rest of my life were completely turned upside down after Edwin appeared. I am Polly, 60 years old, a widow, and I have shut myself away in this lakeside cabin. The silence is comforting, the birdsong, the gentle ripples on the water, the aroma of the grass, everything around me seems to relieve me of the burden of my past life. Life became predictable, calm and uneventful, until Edwin appeared. Edwin is my nephew, my brother's son, the son of a son, 22 years old, and life has dealt him a much harsher blow than his peers. He has just graduated from university, but has no idea what he wants to do with his life. When I heard that he was going through a difficult time, I felt that I had no choice but to let him stay with me for the time being. At first I thought it was just an ordinary visit, but the look in his eyes when he knocked on my door that first night touched me. If you want to be the first to discover these jaw-dropping secrets, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Trust me, I'll keep you until the end, because the ending will blow your mind. Edwin was more than just my nephew. There was a dark power in his eyes that awakened long-dormant emotions. At that moment, I tried to push those thoughts out of my head and tell myself that it was ridiculous that he was just struggling and needed my help. But sometimes, no matter how hard you try, you can't escape your inner struggles. I shared this story not to forget it, but to relive every detail. It was not only a turning point in my life, but also in both of our lives. The strangest thing is that it all seemed fated and inevitable. But even now, I can't help but ask myself, did this really have to happen? In retrospect, I can hardly remember how I got through those days, what I was thinking, or even how I felt. Edwin and I spent such complicated times together that everything feels vague, confusing and in some ways taboo now. But I do remember one thing, sitting by the lake in the early morning, feeling that something big was about to happen. Edwin came towards me, and I knew, I don't know exactly what, but I knew things were moving in a certain direction. Polly, you know. One morning, as I was making breakfast, he came very close to me, and I could feel the tension in his voice. No matter how hard Katerina and I tried, we just couldn't seem to connect. There was a distance between us, and his words hung in the air. He didn't break eye contact, but a flash of shame crossed his face. Despite the openness, I could tell he was still holding back. At that moment, I felt I wasn't alone. There seemed to be something deeper between us, and it deeply moved me. Why were my emotions so volatile? Why did everything feel so intense and so fast? As Edwin drew closer, listening to his troubles, I felt as if all the walls I had built up to protect myself were crumbling. I could feel his gaze fixated on me, drawing me into his world. I can't even describe what I felt in that moment, but I have never been more alive in years. Despite the fact that things were going well with my girlfriend, it wasn't like he said, we hadn't had any intimacy for a long time. Polly, it feels so empty. His voice was strange, mixed with frustration and sadness, and it hit me harder than I thought it would. We were close, I could feel his breath, and my whole body was tense. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. His gaze attracted me like a magnet, and no matter how hard I tried to resist, I couldn't move. Edwin, you know it's not easy to talk about this kind of thing, I said, not really knowing what else to say. I tried to remain as calm as usual, but being so close to him made it hard to deal with my own feelings. I was very nervous at that moment, unable to think about how this would develop or how it would end. But one thing was clear, there was a fire burning deep inside, waiting to change everything. Edwin's words echoed in my head. We had had such an in-depth conversation that every word he said felt closer and more personal. At first, I tried to keep it simple, hoping it would help. Maybe you need to change something. I sounded like I was offering friendly advice, but there was something else in my voice. I didn't even realize it. I felt a little brave, a little bolder. Sometimes sharing your feelings can change everything. Speaking things out might help you understand. Edwin looked at me silently, his eyes shining, but Polly. Sometimes I try so hard, but it never feels enough. I just don't know what to do," he said, his voice full of uncertainty. My heart began to beat faster. Continuing the conversation was like stepping into the unknown. The topic naturally created this tension. This intimacy between us caught me completely off guard. I could feel something stirring deep inside me, and I couldn't ignore it. Sometimes, Ed, when people really connect, they need to open up to each other. I said, even though I fully understood what I meant. My voice had changed, becoming soft and low. I want to help him, of course, but there is also an attraction, an undeniable attraction, growing in that moment. The space between us seems to shrink, without even trying. His eyes are on me. I can feel his presence strongly, as if I were sharing every breath with him. Suddenly, we are both quiet. Not sure what to do, but I know that something, perhaps everything, is about to change. Edwin moves closer, his arms slightly bent, coming towards me. My heart was pounding so hard I felt like I was going to lose my balance completely. Before I could say anything, he took another step forward. I felt his breath on my neck, close to my ear. "Paul, I think there are times when people can get so close that words fail them." "Fail them." He said it with such gravity, but at the same time there was an inexpressible struggle in his voice. This time, it wasn't just our eyes that met, but our entire beings were drawn to each other. There was no gap between us, as if we could feel each other's thoughts, each other's emotions. And just like that, everything was out of my control. I had nothing more to say, because it was no longer about words, but about all the feelings I was experiencing, about everything my body was communicating as it moved closer to him. I felt the whole situation about to change. I couldn't stop Edwin's touch from making my heart race. He stared at me, and I could feel my expression changing. His gaze moved to the white robe I was wearing, and he stared at it for a long time, as if trying to see every detail through the thin fabric. My thoughts became blurred and scattered. The initial excitement had evolved into a storm. I can't escape his gaze fixed on the neckline of my robe. The intensity of the emotion in his eyes takes on a whole new meaning, and it feels as if his gaze can penetrate my body and explore every inch of my skin. I hold my breath, my eyes trembling before him, at a loss. My mind is in turmoil, but my body has already made a decision. As his gaze lingers on my neckline, I can't suppress the feeling that surges through my body, my heart racing, my hands instinctively clutching the robe tighter. I didn't fully understand what it was, but I could feel it. Edwin's gaze in the morning silence made everything seem more intense to me, because I felt control slipping away. I also felt that every step he took towards me made me more nervous. I tried to push away the tangled emotions inside me. I took a deep breath to clear my mind of the chaotic thoughts. I turned towards the counter, making an excuse to go make coffee. With my back to Edwin, I reached for the coffee maker and started to prepare the coffee. Grinding the coffee beans. I could feel the tension in my body growing with every second. Then I felt Edwin approaching. I held my breath and focused on the coffee machine as if it was the only thing that could keep me calm. But he got closer and closer, and I felt a shiver run through me. And then it happened. I felt my dressing gown slip from my shoulders. For a split second, I was completely frozen, not knowing what to do. My dressing gown slid further down my body until it finally fell to the floor. I stood there in my underwear, my heart racing, my breath coming in short pants, right in front of Edwin. I slowly turned around and locked eyes with him. The intensity in his gaze made the fire in me burn even hotter. Edwin came closer, took my hand in his and pulled me towards him without hesitation. We kissed deeply and passionately, as if our lips were meant to collide and our breaths to merge, as if everything had finally found its place. As we kissed, Edwin's hands began to explore my body, and every touch fueled the fire within me. I gave myself completely to him, with no turning back. Everything felt as if it was meant to be, as if it had been destined to happen that very moment. We were so close that it felt as if the world had disappeared, leaving just the two of us caught up in the moment. When the kiss finally ended, I looked into Edwin's eyes, and the intense feeling remained, rekindling the fire within me. "Polly H," he said, his voice a mixture of love and longing. "I want this, but there's no need to talk now." I interrupted myself, feeling both calm and excited. "Enjoy this moment." Edwin moved closer again and we kissed again. This time, our kiss was deeper, hotter, more committed. Every touch, every breath brought us closer together. Now, everything seemed to be going according to plan. In that moment, we were so close that it felt as if the whole world had disappeared. We were the only ones in the world, lost in the moment, breathless and staring. I found myself lying on the kitchen table, Edwin next to me, his eyes fixed on mine. I realized then that this was no dream, but real. My body was still trembling, the fire inside me still burning. It had happened. I was lying on the table, and Edwin had lit a cigarette. The amber glow flickered in the air as he moved closer to me again. "It's fascinating," he says, his voice full of admiration, as his fingers glide along my skin, each touch rekindling the fire that has long burned within me. I close my eyes and let myself fully immerse in the moment. Edwin's fingers slowly travel over my body, each touch awakening new sensations within me. I am completely surrendered to him. There is no turning back. It seems as if it was meant to be, right here and now. Edwin stayed by my side for the rest of the week. Nothing was unusual anymore. For a whole week, everything was different. Every glance from Edwin's eyes, every touch, was like a spell. My heart would pound every time I gazed into his eyes. But now it's over, and all I have left is a strange feeling of emptiness. Edwin has gone home, and despite the things we shared during the week, there's only silence now. Every morning when I wake up, it's as if I'm still stuck in those moments, as if time has frozen. Every second of that week is still inside me, but the longer it goes on, the more I realize how unsteady these feelings make me. I'm lost in the fact that Edwin came home, and that this has put a distance between us. But the chaos inside me hasn't faded. Those days were the most exciting of my life, but when I look back, all I can say is how wrong it all was. I feel guilty. Why did I do it? Why did I let things get so intimate? Edwin's interest in me was so strong, but the emotions he left behind were just as complex. The week we spent together taught me a lot, but it also made me see how wrong it all was. His gaze still haunts my thoughts, and the sensations are still vivid. But every time I remember those moments, I feel a rush of guilt. I shouldn't have done that. I can't forgive myself. Why did I do that? Those moments made me indulge in something irresistible, and now I'm left alone to face what happened in the haze. The way Edwin looked at me made me feel things I'd never felt before, but it was just the beginning of another relationship. I feel like I've lost myself in those moments. Now I'm home alone, and the memories of last week haunt me constantly. On the one hand, I feel excited and eager, but on the other hand, I feel guilty and confused. I know that what happened between us was more than just a mistake, but these emotions have left an emptiness in my life like nothing I've ever felt before. I just know now that I may be at a turning point, but I don't know which direction to go. I hope that everything will pass. I hope that everything will return to normal, but the uneasiness in my heart will not go away soon, no matter how much I want it to. For a year, I didn't hear from Edwin. As time passed, I kept questioning everything that happened that week. At first, I just tried to deal with the chaos inside, but as time passed, my feelings became more and more entangled. Time has passed, and those moments and feelings almost seem like a dream, but one thing has not changed: the emptiness in my heart. Those exciting but wrong moments are still fresh in my memory. One morning, my phone rang, and Edwin's name appeared on the screen. My heart started pounding again, but when I read the text message, my emotions completely changed. Edwin was getting married as soon as I got the wedding date and received the invitation. A burst of old feelings hit me hard and deeply, but at the same time, that guilt and confusion also seemed to have eased a little after a year of guilt and confusion. How should I feel? What should I do? Until that moment, I had felt lost for a year, but now that I knew that Edwin was getting married, I was more confused than ever. Should I go to the wedding? Should I confront him at the most important moment of his life? Everything between us started at that moment. Should I forget the past, move on and stop letting him take up any space in my life? I struggle internally. On the one hand, I find it hard to accept that Edwin no longer belongs to me. On the other hand, I cannot forgive myself for the mistakes I have made. Now I stand at a crossroads and must make a decision, but I don't know which way to go. Maybe I should open the door to the past one last time, or maybe I should accept that it is really over. But one thing is for sure, attending the wedding could mean the beginning of a new life, or it could mean the end of everything. The chaos in my heart is hard to describe in words, but now, the choice to attend the wedding may not just mean facing the past head-on, it could be a turning point in my life. Having read this far, I know that my story has deeply moved you, and I still have a lot more to share. Don't want you to miss any of the excitement. Please click the follow button to enable notifications. Don't forget to leave a comment about this story. I can't wait to hear your thoughts. Please leave a message in the comments section. Your support means a lot to me.